Welcome to the first episode of Tacos and Law. All right, those of you who follow me on TikTok, which is just go to TikTok and put in Tacos and Law, so you see little snippets. All right, this is us on our YouTube channel, and this is the spinoff of BuelnaNews. Still go to BuelnaNews on YouTube and like and subscribe us, but now you're on Buelna Law. I'm on Tacos and Law. So I want you to follow us and like the video, okay? But look, what people are asking, Gabriel, why Tacos and Law? All right, so first of all, we've got our first guest. We'll get to in a second, but we're a bunch of jive talking Chicanos, Mexicans, Latinos, brown folks, and everyone else who likes us or doesn't like us. Maybe they're on at the same time. But tacos are about street food and have been with us for centuries in Mexican and Mexican culture specifically. So, and Law, as an attorney, a California barred attorney, I haven't been barred from the state of California. I actually have a bar card. I'm also a faculty member in Chicano Studies at Cal State Northridge. I have a PhD in political science and a trustee at the LA Community Colleges. So when we're talking about tacos, we're talking about the community, right? We're talking about street food, and we're talking about law, and we're kind of having that conversation. So that's why we have Tacos and Law. But our first guest today, our first guest on Tacos and Law is my good friend, Ignacio Gonzalez. I want the audience to go.
Okay, let's wait for the applause a little bit. Type it in there. Okay.
At Tacos and Law, our budget is a little low, but it's called tacos, so we have to have tacos.
Well, it's an honor to be here and to have our flat tacos here. So
our flat tacos. Okay. These tacos are from El Faro in Northeast LA. Ooh. Okay, it's a truck, and we're gonna see some video of that truck. But we have here today. We have some of the mariscos, the cocktail of camarón. We have the aguachile. We have the tostada of camarón, shrimp. And aguachile is kind of like a ceviche kind of style. And then we have our
you have tacos, okay?
Yeah, we have tacos. We have tacos.
Right.
We have shrimp tacos, and we have empanadas of shrimp right here. Okay, so these are from the Mariscos El Faro Estilo Mazatlan from the state of Sinaloa. And my family we're a mixed family. We're from Sonora and from Sinaloa on my side, and my wife is from Guadalajara. So there's a competition.
And you guys get along? That's good.
We do. There's a competition whether the Sinaloa style food is better than the Jalisco style food. And of course, the Jalisco style food, because that's where my wife is from.
Well, mariscos, I mean, it's got to be Sinaloa. It's by the sea. How's Guadalajara going to compare with mariscos?
Because I'm married.
Well, I'm not married to her. So how are you going to get good fish tacos in Guadalajara?
Okay, well, then you fly in you have Lake Chapala there, so it's there. So, how do I know Ignacio? Ignacio, I've known for a bit. And just so you know, everyone, we're here at Tacos and Law, we're gonna always have food. We start off with mariscos, and our guests are gonna be here because you're in a home right here. But Ignacio is, along with being a comedian, and we're gonna talk about that right now. First, tell us about you being a comedian.
That's the hard part about Tacos and Law. You're eating it.
Yeah, you have.
Trying to talk. So I've been a stand-up comic for a few years now. I performed recently at the Ice House in Pasadena. I will be and have performed at the Stand-Up Comedy Club in Bellflower. I've also performed several times at the Comedy Store in West Hollywood and at the Ontario Improv. But mainly little rooms, little bars and restaurants all over town, primarily the East Side. I was at Bruce's Lounge every Wednesday. Bruce's Lounge, free comedy in Santa Fe Springs. That's free.
From what time to what time? Bruce's Lounge.
The flyer says 8:00, but they're comics. They don't roll until 9:00, and you're there till 11:00 on a Wednesday. But it's free. Free comedy.
So Ignacio, I've known you since 2001 or
Right.
about 2002. I was the executive director of a nonprofit in Boyle Heights called Proyecto Pastoral Dolores Mission.
Right.
And you were the development director there. And I remember looking at your resume, and it said, "I'm a member of Mensa."
That is right. And I lied. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So, and me being a mental, I didn't know what Mensa was. So, can you tell the audience what Mensa was? Because I'm kind of building up to who you are.
All right. So now you give me a chance to brag. Just let it be known that I didn't come out and say it. So, but anyhow, it's a high IQ society. So you have to take a proctored IQ exam. And I took one at Caltech. It was, overseen by somebody. And so my IQ was, I think, 154, something like that. Pretty damn high. So you have to have an IQ above 132 to get in. And so I qualified. So there's one thing to be qualified. I mean, I haven't paid my dues. It's like $72 a month. I didn't see the need, to hang out with a bunch of nerds. I'd rather hang out with Gabriel and people like that. So so I am qualified, I guess, technically. Mensa qualified. That doesn't go away. And just not a paid-up member.
So breaking news. I'm not a member of Mensa.
What?
No, I'm not. I didn't take the exam, or maybe I took it and I failed.
Right, exactly.
But I don't know. But Ignacio went to UC Berkeley, right? What was your BA in?
Economics.
And economics, that little thing. Ignacio worked. I remember when you worked with Supervisor Gloria Molina, right?
I sure did for 10 years. Yeah.
What did you do at Supervisor Molina's office?
I'm mainly overseeing the Department of Public Health and other departments, but that was a big one because at the time, during that stint, that's when the H1N1 swine flu came about. And one of the things that she, on her own, pushed for was flu shot clinics in the 1st District, which she represented. And so, I was giving her reports, me and staff were giving her reports on how it was spreading not only throughout the world, but the state of California and the county of LA, which was more important. Because initially there was a lot of alarm because it was spreading worldwide rampantly. But, that took into account basically countries in Africa and Asia. In LA County, we were calmer because we had it under control. But she said, well, what are we going to do about it? And we hadn't thought about that. And so the famous line that she told us, me and 2 colleagues said, I should line you up like the 3 Stooges and slap you across the face. And she's like, we need to do something about it. Let's get people vaccinated against H1N1. So we did that, and people complained a little bit, but we had flu shot clinics throughout the 1st District and primarily local parks. And people got vaccinated. They lined up, and everything was orderly. Nobody complained. There was no conspiracy theories. And it was contained, and not a whole lot of people died because of that. So
I wanted to bring you on here because after you worked for Gloria Molina, you also the reason I'm spending the time going over this with folks is that just Ignacio right now, he's a comedian, but can you tell us also you're an advocate for those with disabilities?
Yeah. So for 8 years, I also worked helping people with disabilities in any way we could. It was, applying for SSI benefits. The primary need that they have, I'd say like 90% of the questions were regarding housing, low income housing specifically. And that just does not exist. I mean, there's waiting lists. You have to wait forever, and you can't. I mean, people would want to live in a low-income housing unit, pay $100 a month, and they want to move in 2 weeks, and that's just not going to happen. You got to wait 10 years.
So, thank you for saying that, Ignacio. You have to try those empanadas right now,
all right?
Because
I sure will.
Really are part of the food is part of what we're doing here.
All right, sounds good.
But as a trustee at the LA Community Colleges, when I was president of the board last year,
right.
Did you not go to the meeting and tell me off?
I sure did. So there was
tell me.
There was a lawsuit that went all the way out. It's still pending all the way to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, regarding access to in this case there was material for visually impaired people, Braille and other forms. And so they asked me, you know what, this code, we're going to testify before the board. And I'm like, all right, I'll go tell those suckers off. And I go, and sure enough, there's Gabriel. who I hadn't seen in a while.
And you're like, hi, Gabriel.
Hey, what's up?
By the way, you bastard.
What's wrong with you?
Hey, who else was there?
And David Vela was there.
David Vela.
And Ernie Moreno, who was president of ELAC when I was there as a student many years ago. So I'm like, hey, I know almost half of the board, so hopefully they'll comply. But anyhow, and from what I understand, so it wasn't that you were denying, or not you, but your attorneys, your LACCD attorneys were not denying that they needed it, or not even saying that because if it presents an undue burden to provide material in alternative format, then you don't have to do it. But I don't know, you were using some kind of a novel trick to get around the Americans with Disability Act.
So I'm gonna right now. Ignacio's like,
you have to defer.
Hold on. You're on my show, and I'm gonna claim attorney privilege.
See that's easy. Tacos and law.
Look, I'm combining that. No, but
have a taco, and then I'm gonna use my lawyer instincts.
Right, eat more food. Don't ask me difficult questions.
More tacos, less law.
Shit. Hey, you weren't supposed to be that critical, Ignacio. No,
I did some homework.
No, well, you're a mensa. I was going to say mental, but
mensen.
But I brought that up because you're an advocate for the disabled, and at that point, LA Community Colleges was 9 colleges, hundreds of thousands of students. There is a lawsuit; it's pending. I'm not going to talk about that. And you have a podcast. We talked about it a little bit, but what I thought was specifically interesting is that you, even though we know each other, a lot of people, you can, as individuals, we can argue against each other. You can advocate, against. I may go to you one day and say, Ignacio, you're not doing this, blah 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 blah,
right?
And still be having tacos.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's a novel idea nowadays, right? That we can disagree on something but still be cool.
So what was interesting is that when I became an attorney, Ignacio was advocating. Then he'd call me and say, Gabriel, you got to take this client on, and I'm like, okay, Ignacio, I'm running a business, but he's like, yeah, this is how you're going to get experience. So Ignacio is an advocate, knows policy. And weren't you a Chicano studies minor or
no? Just read a lot. I read.
Okay.
I read books. Okay. I don't just scroll through things.
Okay. Well, that's good. But so as you're in this role of kind of being in public policy, being a development director, nonprofit organization, I've seen you mentor all kinds of kids, raising money, and then you go into being a comedian,
right?
So can you tell me why you did that, and specifically what your angle is?
So it all started, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. I took a class with the legendary Latino comic, Rudy Moreno. He's teaching classes now, today. I don't know when this airs, but he's teaching at the Stand-Up Comedy Club on how to be a comic. And so, speaking of legends, a legend, let me name drop some more. The legendary Josefina Lopez was taking his comedy class. It was going to start on a weekend, on a Saturday. And she tells me, hey, you're kind of funny. Why don't you take the class too? Like maybe 3 days before.
Are you name dropping?
I'm name dropping like crazy. I'm not done yet. I got some more names to drop. Hold on. About a whole bag of names.
All right.
So anyhow, she said, you know what? Take the class. And I go, all right. Just, 2-3 days before I signed up, took it. And from there, we had a show. Rudy always has a graduation show, he calls it. When you're done, you perform. In this case, it's going to be at the Stand-Up Comedy Club in Bellflower. Nice, new, new comedy club. And then at the time, it was at the Ice House. Then from there, I got pulled over to do the Comedy Store a couple times. I have a great fan support.
For a second, I thought you got a DUI. I was going to sell my services to you.
DUI? Nah.
Okay, no. Okay, you got
never.
Okay,
no, I don't.
You got pulled over for something else.
Yeah, no, I got pulled.
Okay.
I pulled over to do comedy at the Comedy Store a couple times, and I have a lot of friends that I would call my fan base, but they would drive all middle of the week all the way to West Hollywood, pay $15 for parking and then tickets and all that. So the guy that was booking said, hey, man, you know what? You bring a lot of people. So he brought me back maybe, 4 or 5 times out there. And then from there, I just I just moved on and started doing comedy around town, and I got interrupted a bit during COVID. I did Zoom shows, which were not very easy to do, and so. But anyhow, I'm just recently in the last several months getting right back into it. So I'm doing more and more shows.
So Ignacio, you're Mexican American, Chicano?
Yes.
Okay.
All of the above.
All the above. Tell me, because one of the reasons I wanted to start Tacos and Law with you, because I notice a lot of the comedy by Mexican American, Chicano, lots of different names we have. The three Mexican American, Chicano, Mexican, everyone uses different terms. Our comedy seems to be Netflix and Amazon. There seems to be some good opportunities and some good. Who are some of the popular Mexican American Chicano comedians out there right now?
So everybody knows Felipe Esparza, who we had on. If you want to backtrack to our fundraiser we did 20 years ago, but Felipe, Rudy, obviously Gabriel Iglesias. Everybody knows the popular ones, but there are a whole ton of. I guess I don't want to insult them, but lesser known. Let's just say Chicano comics out there grinding and are on the cusp of being great. One of my buddies that's doing it as well. He did my podcast. Jerry Garcia opened for Fluffy recently, and he's out there. He's been this month of January or last month out in Florida, and he's touring. He's going to Chicago next. Him and Jesus Sepulveda. Check them both out. Just Google Jerry Garcia comedian. Jesus Sepulveda is out there doing his thing.
Sorry. And they're on your podcast, right?
Jerry has been, yeah.
Oh no, but what's your podcast?
My podcast is Nacho Said So.
Okay, and where could folks find the broadcast?
Anywhere you stream podcasts, Spotify, iHeart Music, Amazon Music, Apple, anywhere, any podcast. So any podcast.
What's the young kid with the short hair in Texas?
Ralph Barbosa.
Yeah, Ralph Barbosa.
Ralph Barbosa. Yeah, and then that's kind of a new thing going on where he got famous, especially well known outside of Texas by doing TikTok and social media clips, and so he became popular because of that.
So in terms of overall Latino comedy, right? Latino comedy, is there such a thing as Latino comedy, or is it really broken down into kind of comics who focus on mostly Mexican American? Do people focus on their own group, or is there such a thing as Latino comedy? Tell us, how do you survive out there?
So the thing is, I don't think that they, it's not that they intentionally focus on Mexican American or Chicano. It's just they focus on their experiences.
Okay.
And so it happens to be whatever it is that, whether they are, some of them are like first generation Mexican American, full on bilingual. In some cases, I think maybe their first language was Spanish. So they focus on, their parents and their family and their tios and whatever it is that they experience. Now, it isn't that they want to exclude any other Latino nationalities, but, you talk about what you know. I mean, that's rule number one in comedy, right? So
there isn't one Chicano Mexican American comedy, right? There is. I think what you're saying is if you have because what I'm getting from comedy is that you focus on your kind of issue, right? If you have an accent, if you're an immigrant, if you were born here, third generation, whatever childhood trauma, right? So in terms of
you sprinkle Spanish in there, as needed. If you're talking about your abuelita, then you're talking Spanish, right? Or your parents or whatever. So that's what the comics do.
Right, into what they know. But have you seen now with the growth of social media, is there are let's focus on Mexican American Chicanos, which are about 90% of Latinos in the Southwest. What it doesn't seem though that we're kind of breaking through in terms of major broadcasts, even though you've had George Lopez and people are like, oh yeah, you had Ricky Ricardo, you have George Lopez, you have
Freddie Prinze.
Yeah, Freddie Prinze. And our friends from Culture Clash, Richard Montoya. But for our numbers in the population, as the second largest ethnic group in the United States,
right,
Latinos, but Mexican Americans alone would be that. Why why does it seem that we're not getting into the major comedy clubs, or we're not hitting major shows? Why not? What's the issue?
Well, part of the issue is that there is a lack of representation just along, across all kinds of art forms, right? Particularly in Hollywood, acting and directing and the like. So, but the thing is that, so now a lot of actors and directors, because you can create your own, you can buy your equipment, as we see here, right? And create your own content. So a lot of people are doing that. They're creating their own content, they're writing their own scripts. But it's a little more expensive and a little harder to get into. Now, comedy, you just need to get up there and do an open mic, or you need to go to you can go to any bar, any restaurant and make a deal. Say, hey, I'll bring in somebody, you pay me $100 or whatever, pay me X amount of dollars. I'll bring in comedy. We'll do it on a night that's slow, say, for example, a Monday night. And all you need is a microphone.
But in terms of what's interesting is some of what I notice on TikTok, right? Mm-hmm. And viewers, if you have a comment about something I'm saying, or hey, I missed this, or
Mm-hmm.
You're wrong on this, or you're lucky, or you're crazy, I'm okay if you say that. By the way, mm-hmm. You're like, even if you're not, I'm still gonna say it. It really seems as though there's a lot of comedy that makes fun of Latinos. Mm-hmm. Latinos, you guys are only work, and there's nothing wrong with being a laborer. There's nothing wrong with that. But Mexicans can build this house in 3 days, and maybe we can.
Yeah.
Right? but it seems as though there's a lot of comedy out there where if we said the things that were said about Mexicans, right? And maybe they're said about other Latinos as well, but they're saying about Mexicans, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, Mexicans and crossing rivers and this and that. If you were to say that to other ethnicities, it would be seen as racist.
True.
But because they're saying it about Mexicans, Chicanos, whether you're English speaking, Spanish speaking, mm-hmm. it seems okay to make fun of us.
Right. And you know what? Part of it, I think, is because when you tell any joke, right, you have to set up the premise first. So if I'm going to talk about a PhD that teaches as an attorney, if I want to say a joke about you, some guy that I'd have to set that up first. I have to explain, okay, this is Gabriel, and I have to go through my act and talk about you and explain, and then go into the jokes. Whereas all the stereotypes you talk about, it's easy because everybody knows it already. So you can go right into the punchline, basically.
So is some of the comedy that just focuses on stereotypes, is it
lazy? It's lazy.
It's lazy.
It's lazy. Yeah, a lot of it is lazy. You need to, because again, you need to break out of what's easy. It's easy to go into the stereotypes because everybody knows them. You can go to any audience, because one of the things you want to appeal to the broadest audience possible as a comic, and so you want to not only talk to people who experience that directly, but just any other ethnicity. So so those stereotypes are easy. But it's lazy, and I think what we need to be doing now, I think that many comics have more of a platform to change those dynamics.
So, are those some of those are some of the themes that we're making fun of? Do you see the themes that we're dealing with in Chicano and Mexican American comedy? Are they growing, or are we still in the same place?
No, you know what? Because I think now, since especially here in Southern California, in the LA area, we have a little more political representation. So, unfortunately, I mean, we can make fun of some of the fallen politicians out there, but people know what we're talking about, so we can go into the jokes about certain political figures because we have more political representation. Now it's up to elected officials to behave themselves and actually do something for the people to change that. But we have a whole host of people that we can make fun of.
Can a Latino or Mexican American comic ever be as famous as David Chappelle and Chris Rock in the United States in English?
I would say yes, eventually. I don't know how long that will take. A lot of these comics, I mean, like Gabriel Iglesias and Felipe, they can sell out, they're selling out stadiums, or they go on tour and they're generating a lot of income. Now, to that extent, I mean, it's just, can any comic outside of, Chappelle and Hart and those guys, Chris Rock, who I admire because of his stance, social political critiques. But yeah, I think eventually yes. And just judging, because what I see at all the rooms and clubs, especially in the Southeast LA area, they're mainly Latino run rooms. There are many the bookers. It used to be where there was a guy that tried to make money off of comics would be the middleman, make the deals, pocket a big chunk of money. And I think the comics, particularly Latinos, are like, hey, you know what? You're not going to make money off of my back. I'm going to make the money. I will book the rooms. And so there's a lot of comics out there.
But are we not getting into clubs even in LA?
You know what? Yeah, these guys have, the Laugh Factory has been more receptive to Latino comedy clubs, especially the new one out in Covina. There's a new Laugh Factory out there. Yeah, and I noticed that, for example, the Comedy Store, not so much. The Ice House is more receptive. And the Stand-Up Comedy Club, check that out. I looked at their lineup, and they have Latino and African-American comics scheduled all the time. Like, probably the majority of comics are of color.
But Ignacio, Latinos are 50 to 55%. Brown folks are 50 to 60% of all of LA.
But in Hollywood, what percentage are they?
Right. So what's the disconnect? So are we seen as invisible, or do we not exist, or what?
Because I think it might have to do with bookers, comedy bookers, that might see that we won't appeal to anybody outside of our race. And then, like I said, what these guys are doing, and I hope to eventually do as well, is to sort of knock that aside, is that idea that we cannot appeal to anybody outside of our race, because they might be afraid that we're going to talk in Spanish and talk behind white folks' back if we
give back the Southwest of Mexico, or
that we're looking to conquer by making people laugh, and next thing you know, here we are taking back control. But that's what we have to do as comics is to show that we have shared experiences as well, that we don't just it's not just about abuelita this and my tío said that. It's we have other challenges and triumphs as well.
So let's switch over to something really easy. Yeah. So President Biden, and there was this, there was a special counsel in President Biden that says President Biden was losing his memory, and he lost that he didn't know whether he was speaking to the Egyptian or Mexican president. Is the Biden issue, do you think, a problem, or are Democrats just wimpy?
Both. I think they are wimpy. They haven't taken the gloves off. See, the thing is that I think you got to clarify. Okay, with Biden, the thing is that the prosecutor said that they will not. And you as an attorney would know, right? You don't want to put somebody on the stand that will be compassionate, right? You don't want to put like a grieving mother, for example, and try to cross-examine her if you're defending somebody, because they present a certain way, and the jury or the judge will see them as sympathetic. With Biden, the thing is that so they're not going to proceed with prosecution because he presents as an elderly man. Then what they should say, Donald Trump is defendant Donald Trump. Okay, but 91 indictments, defendant does not present, and his own people won't put him on the stand because he doesn't present. He presents as an a-hole.
So okay, and this is what I don't get about Democrats or independents and some of the good Republicans, is that when Donald Trump makes fun of the disabled, right? He makes these gestures. I'm not gonna do that. That
should have been the end of his
career, right? So he makes fun of that. He says that Nancy Pelosi is in charge of the January 6th security.
Nikki Haley,
right? He salutes the North Korean president, who is close to, and Republicans are like, or at least a good majority that support him are like, well, we don't care, right? So they don't care. It doesn't matter if Donald Trump, like he said, if he shot someone on Fifth Avenue, no one would care.
Right.
So here you have, it seems like you have a standard for Joe Biden, which is super high, right? Oh my God, you forget this. And oh my God, well, we need to worry. What would he do in an emergency? Versus we already know what Trump would do. And you tell folks, and this is what I've told folks, and is that as either Democrats or if you don't want Trump in office, stop harassing Biden. Like literally stop harassing Biden. Okay, he forgets things. He makes gaffes. Okay. On his worst day, Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump even on his worst day. So as the left and Democrats and independents are having this conversation, oh my God, really you're saying that Donald Trump that has confused the issues of race in the United States, and they're like, well, he was right on NATO, right? And my thing is, well, broken clock is right twice a day.
Exactly.
So and everyone knew the whole issue with NATO anyway, you know, so what? You know, so I'm not getting why we're so worried about Joe Biden at all.
See, the thing is that that Trump was able to create this environment where, you know, it's not based on truth or lies or whatever. It's just whatever he says, and if enough people repeat it, it's a truth. End of story, right or wrong. And so everybody jumps on board, and if everybody repeats it, that becomes the law, right? So unfortunately, that's what happened. And with the Democrats, everybody's too busy correcting themselves and say, no, we have to be, you know, right or wrong. Al Franken does one, you know, takes one bad picture and he's out the door. All these other good politicians, they're gone.
But the problem that I'm seeing is that as we're getting rid of folks, as you know, get rid of Biden because he doesn't know that it was a president of Egypt instead of, you know, well, and Republicans are like, well, yeah, we don't care. Yeah, we don't care. And we're better. Yeah, but we lost Roe v. Wade because of Trump. Be very clear. And if Trump wins again, right now there's 6 conservatives. It will be 8 conservatives. The entire court will be conservative. Then people will be like, well, we got to do something about it.
And you can't.
And you can't.
Well, you're not going to be able to. Exactly.
You can't. And this is where I think at this point, kind of my message to folks is stop. Whatever, Biden is going to keep making mistakes because he's always made mistakes.
Exactly.
When he was 30, 40, that's his thing. So at 80 or however, I don't care if Biden's 100 years old.
Yeah.
He and people have said, well, he was supposed to transition, you know, away from Trump. Yes, but Trump is running again.
Yeah.
As he's running again,
and half the country hasn't let him transition over.
Had to transition, so that needs to. So, because I'm seeing folks that, you know, Bill Clinton's, you know, some of his campaigners, people that I respect, just really knocking Biden, and they're thinking, well, we might as well say this right now: the election's in November.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Exactly.
We need that theme song of "Let It Go." let it go. You know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, and so and I think again it's just that that Trump created that environment where it doesn't matter. I mean, he created an environment where heads I win, tails you lose, and Democrats are jumping on board. Okay, yeah, that sounds good, and it shouldn't be the case.
So Ignacio, you when we did your podcast, you wanted to ask me questions about family law. So what are some of your questions about family law and criminal law for me?
So first off, I was one of the things I neglected to tell you during the podcast is, and I'll tell you right now,
do not confess whatever you do.
Okay. No,
there's no attorney-client privilege right now.
I blame you for giving the loan.
Why?
Let that sink in.
Okay.
Because remember when you ran for assembly, you to replace Jackie Goldberg, was it?
Yeah.
So she had her pick. You know, her staff person, Elena Pop.
Yeah.
And then one of Cesar Chavez's granddaughters ran.
Yeah.
And then Fabian Nunez, who was Speaker of the Assembly, I think, had his good buddy from kindergarten.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fabian Nunez running. And you didn't beat him. You could have taken him down at that point.
Okay, so I apologize for not
taking him down.
For not winning the
and the only reason, I don't blame you. I blame Fabian Nunez for for bringing him onto the scene. He only won because he's buddies with Fabian. But anyhow, I always remember that
race.
That race, exactly. And so and I knew it was going to be a tough sled for you because of all those people, right? The incumbent had her choice. The Speaker of Assembly had his choice, and Cesar Chavez's granddaughter is like, "Oh, come on, you're not going to be able to."
I'm over there just going as metiche.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm here. But
and I was cheering you on from, yeah, Gabriel, go, Gabriel. He's not gonna make it.
but I learned that I learned from that race. It's interesting. A lot of the relationships from that race helped me for when I won the community college seat. So people have asked, do I regret running in 2006 for the assembly? And I'm like, absolutely not, because you have to learn, you have to take risks, you have to fail, you have to you have to do it, right? Look, like folks have asked me in family law, right?
Yeah.
So like yesterday I was in court, right? I had a client who, and I'm not going to reveal anything about my clients, but sometimes clients go in without representation, right? What's called improper, right? And you go in, and sometimes the court, because the court speaks its own language, right?
Right.
In fact, some of it's in Latin, right? Improper, right? Watch it be Greek. It's not Latin, but sometimes the court will say, hey, are you the father, right? Are you, do you accept paternity? And you're like, I want custody, and I want a DNA test.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't get custody. Well, I wonder why, because you're not saying you're the father, right? And I've had situations like that where people have asked me, like, do you need an attorney? And the answer is yes, you do. Because you can only navigate the system so far, right? And like, do you know what a 225, where you have 2 days for the mom, 2 days for the dad, and then 5 days for the weekend, and you switch off, right? A 225 schedule. Do you know what legal custody is? Physical custody, right? And like, we were able to get through this case, but you do need representation. Like in dealing with folks who have disabilities, right? Sometimes you have people wanting to take advantage of folks who have disabilities.
I'm gonna recommend another comic to you, Jerry Garcia.
Okay.
He has a podcast called "It's Not My Weekend." So.
Oh, okay. So you
you said, the famous joke is like, I love being a father, especially when it's not my weekend. So that's where it comes from. So.
Well, what's interesting.
No, he's a good dad, by the way. It's part of an act.
Well, no, I get that, but what's interesting is that sometimes as fathers and mothers or as parents, you're like, as attorneys, we get you're like, oh, you get 50%. You're like, I didn't know I was. I didn't know I'm not prepared to be a parent 50% of the time. And you're like, didn't we sign a retainer about getting you 50% custody? Right? And a lot of these parents, they're not ready, right? Because think about it, it's hard being a single parent, right? I grew up with the mom and dad living in the same home. Fought a lot, but
but they still together.
But they shared bills, right? They shared bills. If you're a mom, dad, and you're by yourself, now each one of them has their own bills.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. So how did you deal with a lot of the disabled who needed those legal services?
A lot of times, and I was going to ask you about one of the clients I referred over to you. They have traumatic brain injury, so they don't. Just cannot navigate life on their own. So, and if you can go into a story about a guy that I referred to you who had traumatic brain injury, when he came to me 4 years ago, he was wearing a helmet. His mom had to help him walk, and he was young. He was in his early 20s. Had traumatic brain injury, and he could barely talk. And I didn't think he was. He didn't seem to know what I was asking him. Right. Then years later, he walks in by himself. He moves a little slow, but he said he was going to get back to work installing solar panels, meaning climbing up on roofs. So he made tremendous progress. So I said, and he had child custody issues. He tried to explain to me. I said, Gabriel, can you take over and help him out? And then you discovered something.
I did,
right?
And you're able to figure out whether you need to do a temporary restraining order. You need to figure out whether the other side needs to pay for that individual's attorney's fees.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I've known with folks who have disabilities is that the other side, if they don't have an attorney, take advantage real sad.
Yeah.
And then some of these folks are lonely. Right.
Yeah.
And that honestly, that troubles me. That, you know that person can't do it. Whatever, because they may have gotten cerebral palsy, they may have gotten they can't walk again, and they make life difficult, and as much as we get paid, we like our job, but like seeing people taken advantage of, that it's just mean, right? It's mean, and that motivates.
But in this case, wasn't the injury might have been caused by the ex?
Well, without getting into all those details, things may or may not have occurred. But in law, sometimes it's about what you can prove and how long ago. Right. And I've had spouses, I've had significant others who know that other person did something to them, can prove it, but they won't, because then they'll send the mother of their kids to jail, right?
Right.
Like, look, this is what happened to me the other day, right? And this is, folks need to understand this too, is that when you go to court and people are going to be like, oh my God, that should just be natural. You need to tell the truth.
What?
Yeah, and it's like
nothing but the truth.
Hold up, wait a minute. Is even if you're embarrassed or what you're asking about is hard, if the judge does not believe you, you might lose some of your custody. You might get paid more for child support.
Right.
You might. So, but what I've seen it the other way, where people make the difficult decision about telling sometimes, Your Honor, yes, I did that bad thing. And the court is like, you know what? You could have lied to me. You did it.
Yeah.
And let's let it go. Look, being in court is no joke. And just because some of your buddies, tell you about some rule in court, once you're in front of the judge and you raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth, it's a criminal or civil penalty. Let me give
civil case can turn criminal, right? If you mess up.
A family law case can turn into a criminal contempt case real quick, because someone didn't follow the orders, and they were specific orders, right? Because I've defended against contempt. Those orders have to be specific, right? And now you're spending $4,000 or $5,000 on someone like me to go to Riverside, right? And like I did the other day. And how did I get around that contempt? I simply talked to the other party. I said, look, are you sure you want to send her potentially to jail? And he said, no, I don't. Can we negotiate what you're looking for? Yes. So we stayed after the hearing and we negotiated everything. Most problems that I've seen in court can be dealt with simply negotiations.
Just talking.
But people, because it's personal relationship, there's a lot of infidelity. There's a lot of people.
You want to get back at them?
Yeah, you want to back. You hate them. You hate them. And now you're spending tens of thousands of dollars, right? So
something I always wonder in court. When somebody says something, somebody says something that's inappropriate, and the judge tells the jury, you will strike that from your memory. Do they really strike it from their memory, or do they? Or would that be a strategy to be like, I'm going to throw it in, and then say, "Oh, Your Honor, I rescind."
Well, yes, right. But here's what I've noticed, and representing folks, is that 97% of your time, people don't lie. They don't.
Oh wow.
And when people become jurors, you can ignore what you've been told, but most people, 90 some odd percent, that's my oath. It's my word. And they know that you can't lie about it, So do people follow it all the time? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think that if the juror says, I understand, then they understand, right? Because if you don't have any trust within the system, then the system grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
So you have to.
Going back to nationally, right? Either we believe in the court system or we don't.
Right. So I wanted you to be on this first episode of Tacos and Law, because again, we're talking about community and public policy and as a comedian. You have a BA in economics, worked with public officials, and now you're in comedy, right? So I do believe comedy is important for in terms of moving social issues, right?
Yeah,
And frankly, comics might say, "Yo, you're putting too much into it," but no, historically, comedy can set narratives.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm being direct with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is your narrative that you're trying to, are you trying to change something? Are you trying to make money? What are you trying to do with your comedy?
Good thing, because then I started later, so it's not like make or break. I gotta do or die here, so I can be a little more political than most people. One of the things when I worked for the county for Gloria Molina, we were dealing with the lead paint issue. There was a lot of places, houses that were they were banning lead paint, and people were being sued, right? So one of the things I learned was that kids would eat lead paint and it affected brain development. I also learned that a lot of the good Mexican candy has a lot of lead in it, right? So when you eat lead as a child, it affects your brain development. So you end up kind of stupid when you get older. So that's why a lot of Mexicans voted for Donald Trump. Yeah, you were waiting for the science, right? I dropped science on you.
I'm like, is he saying something about me? What I ate lead paint. Yeah, I hate some of that. I hate some of that on waiting to come back from Tijuana on the border.
I ate the Duvalin when I was a kid.
I ate the mazapan. Did the mazapan have but where do you if you see this video in 10 years,
yeah,
where do you see yourself in terms of a comedy and you pushing the envelope? Like, for instance, are Chicano comics talking about race?
Yeah.
Are we talking about skin color? Are we talking about immigration? Are we talking about some of the issues? I mean, skin color is a big issue in our community. Whether you're light skinned, dark, no one's going to tell me that if you're dark skinned, you do not have it harder in brown communities.
Right.
Are we pushing those issues? Are we talking about colonialism, or is colonialism not funny?
Yeah. I think part of it is that
you didn't laugh.
Yeah, it's not funny. Well, not in and of itself, right? You can make it funny, but see, the thing is that going back to political comics like even Richard Pryor and George Carlin. See, back then, when you talked about politics, you were just talking about who you voted for 6 months ago, right? It took you half a second to punch a little chat in a ballot card, and that was it. It didn't mean anything. Now, when you talk about politics, you're talking about, because of the environment we're in, about the person's the center of the core of who they are. You're talking about their ethnicity. You're talking about their culture. You're talking about their religion in some cases. So when you get political nowadays, you can really offend a crowd. And now, as a comic, you want to have the crowd on your side. You can't afford, and all it takes is one loudmouth to start talking smack. Now, I think I'm smart enough to fight back. However, I don't want to spend my 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes stage time fighting with somebody. And the crowd didn't go there to see that, right? They went because they're getting away from that. They're like, you know what? There's a lot of BS going out there. I want to sit and laugh. I don't want to hear politics. Whereas back then, it wasn't a big deal if I talked about, going back to like Chris Rock making fun of Bill Clinton. He has some very good Bill Clinton jokes, a whole bit on that. Even if you voted for Bill Clinton, you're like, you know what? You can laugh it off and say, yeah, you know what? He's right. And then you're not offended. But now it's hard because people take great offense because you're talking about who they are as a person.
Who's that one comedian who talks female? I think she's Dominican, and she says she's talking about the difference between Dominicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans.
Aida Rodriguez, yeah.
Okay,
who will also be at the stand-up comedy club, I think, soon this month. So
but one of her bits was interesting, and I forget the whole lineup, but she said, oh, Dominicans are lighter skin. But I
think Cubans are lighter skin, and Puerto Ricans think they're better because they're citizens.
Yeah, right?
Right.
And at that one point, with that one joke, you had issues of colonialism, skin, a tone of skin. Mm-hmm. You had what other issues within that one joke?
And see, one of those things too. I mean, because some people might not even know that Puerto Ricans are citizens, so that joke might not work with everybody, And might not know that in Cuba, the Cubans we have here might be the light skins that got out, but there are darker folks back in Cuba, in Haiti, or people don't know, for example, that Haitians, they say that the southern border is wide open. Well, there's a lot of Haitians that go to Mexico with the intent of crossing the border, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to get in. So they're living in Mexico. There's a big Haitian community, especially around in Tijuana and on the border towns. My dad likes to go to this place when he goes to near Mexicali to have birria. And he went there, he got there by like noon, and they were sold out of birria. And he asked the man, so what happened? How come you sold out quickly? He said, the Haitians came in and bought it all, the goat birria.
But okay.
So anyhow, going back to your question, even then, I think most of us generally know, or that Puerto Ricans are citizens. That joke might have taught people that, like, hey, why is that so funny? Oh, I didn't know Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens that can vote for citizens, just don't have representation in Congress.
So that's where the concept of critical race theory, right? Because, breaking it down, critical race theory for brown communities would be, critical raza theory, right? Yeah. Okay. Critical race theory, but in Spanish,
right?
Basically, we're complicated. Latinos in general, we're complicated.
Yeah.
We have different narratives. But what was the comedian's name?
Aida Rodriguez.
Aida Rodriguez. It was probably one of the smartest bits.
Yes.
Because you're talking about 3 distinct ethnicities and then literally identifying the joke, 3 of them within one.
Yeah.
Within one. It's probably one of the smartest bits among a Latina.
It is sharp, yes. And the thing is, things like that, I mean, you can inject jokes that have critical race theory within them, but you don't want to say as a comic, okay, everybody, now I'm about to go into CRT, because then they'll freak out, right? No. You can do it without them really knowing.
But a lot of Black comedians, Jewish comedians in the past, are able to use critical race theory. Yeah. No one knows. Look, Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, and other comedians use critical race theory in their comedy because they're talking about issues of race. But some will say because in the Black community is a national minority, and Latinos are not a national minority.
Right.
You've got mostly Mexican. 90% of Latinos in the Southwest are Mexican American. So you've got the Mexican, Central American, and other Latino kind of not competition, but interacting with each other. Kind of New York and South Florida are a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you may have a Latino crowd that may not understand all the jokes, even among themselves.
Exactly. And that's why some of the comics that I've mentioned, they're touring throughout California, Arizona, and Texas even. They go back and forth because they're shared. And so, they have like a shared understanding. They know they can get some of the jokes. And a lot of them have told me that their next goal is to be able to go to Iowa and the Midwest and, Chicago, while it's a little bit different, but other places where they can prove that they can play as well. They go to Denver.
But is it a bad thing to admit that we're just more complicated? I mean,
not at all.
I mean that it's just the reality. I mean, you can't get mad at the audience for not understanding what you're saying.
And it's just a matter of setting up the premise more than just going right into a joke because, like I said, the stereotypes are easy because people already have a misunderstanding.
I call it chancla comedy.
Exactly. Yeah. And the chancla, I mean, that joke is kind of played out already. Everybody talks about it. So, and even white people.
Your mama hit you with the chancla.
And like a joke's played out with even white folks say it, right? But they say, "Oh, I got hit with the Louis Vuitton slider."
But you and I had this conversation a little while ago. Is that if you're a comedian, okay, it's your job, it's your business. So if you're a comedian, you're also trying to get paid.
Yeah.
So
by appealing to the widest audience possible.
By appealing to the lowest common denominator. So can you blame some of these comedians for going to the chancla joke because it may make people laugh?
It's easy and not only is it easy, it's not just that they're lazy, but they tell you when you go in the green room, you're getting 12 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So, you don't want to spend all time setting up the premise. Okay, let me tell you, when we grow up, this is a flip-flop and we call it a chancla. And it would happen, but you don't want to go, spend a whole minute on that and then go into the chancla jokes. It's easier to just go right into it. People understand. Or if you had Like I talk about, like, I wish I got hit with the little flip flop. My dad was a paisa. I got hit with the big paisa belt, and I have to explain, right? It's a big double belt that had the 2 rows of picos on it, right? So I have to explain that and set it up. The paisa belt is a lot different from the chancla, but I have to spend time out of my minute waiting for the light to come on to tell me to get off stage. But I have to set that up. Now, if I want to change the narrative and go away from chancla, I have to do that, like it or not.
So even among, for instance, Mexican community in the United States, right? Forget saying Chicano, Mexican, Mexican American, is that it's complicated among us because you may have second generation Mexican Americans not knowing what a paisa belt is, and not knowing some of the verbiage that a first generation like you or me might know.
Exactly. And
so like we're complicated.
We're complicated, and again, you know, in order to change the narrative, we have to explain it.
So what you're saying ultimately, I believe is that in order to get jokes from brown communities, and when I say brown communities, I try and avoid the word Latino, in terms of the diverse, if you're Dominican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Mexican, Chicano, or Salvadoran, or whatever. So do we then have to set up the joke a little extra than other communities? Yeah, we do if we're going into new territory, right? That people might not readily know, because just with any joke, right? If it's a shared experience, like anything that's in the news, anything that's current events. Well, you've probably heard the news today, so then you just say, in the news today, Biden lost his, they say he's losing his memory, and then you just go into the jokes, bam, 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 and so you don't have to say, well, okay, he's 80 years old, he's been in politics for 50 years or whatever it has been now, and he's done gas and so you don't have to set it up. You just go right into it, right? So then the stereotypical negative Latino premises already exist. You can go right into those jokes easily without wasting your time, using up the time that you are allotted on stage. Now, if you want to change the narrative, you're going to have to talk about it. You have to work at it, yeah. And it's difficult because, like I said, it cuts into your stage time. You have, you're waiting for the light. There's always a light to go on, and you're waiting for the light, but you have to use 30 seconds, of your time to set up the premise and then go into your jokes. Whereas it's easier to just go into the old tired stereotypes because everybody will get that right away. All right, everyone. So today we've been with comic Ignacio Gonzalez. We've gone over comedy, folks with disabilities, Kevin De Leon. We've gone over family law. We've gone over the nature of Chicano, Brown, Latino comedy, national politics. So thank you, and for the audience. Those of you who are, you're new to Tacos and Law because this is our first episode. Okay, whatever errors we made, at least we got a lot of good food. Very good. This is with Ignacio. But press the subscribe button. Okay. Yes. And share with us and put a comment and like the video. If you didn't like it, then tell us you didn't like it. But please, we want that shared experience with you. If also, just as a point of personal privilege, on TikTok, follow me on Tacos and Law on TikTok. Follow me, share that as a family law and criminal law attorney. Go to BuelnaLaw.com. Shoot me an email if you want to talk to me. But Ignacio, any final words? Yes, follow me on the Nacho Said So podcast. Again, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you find your podcast, Nacho Said So. I will be at the Stand Up Comedy Club on Thursday, the 29th, leap year. I will be there. So go on to the standupclub.com. Check that out. We'll be there with Rudy Moreno, Chris Simpson, Omar the Great. Great lineup. And another thing I forgot to mention too, speaking of name dropping Gloria Molina and Josefina Lopez, Josefina's writing a play on Gloria Molina's life. She's going to do a table read soon, but hopefully the play will come out in August or September at Casa 0101, another great venue for entertainment, called A Woman Named Gloria. As of now, that's the working title. You're a walking commercial. Yeah, I like to promote all my people. Like I said, promote away. Everyone, follow all the comics. Promote away. Look at all the comics. And there's some great comics out there. Like I said, Sebastian Cetina is the one that runs the Bruce's Lounge every Wednesday, Santa Fe Springs, border Norwalk.
Narciso Gonzalez runs the Cork Room in East LA, Olympic Boulevard, I believe, like the third Thursday. Just follow Rudy Moreno. He has several rooms. Like I said, all these guys are performing everywhere at the Ice House. I think actually Friday, what are we on today? The 8th, Friday night, Narciso had a show, a monthly show at the Ice House as well. So again, all working Latino comics. There's a ton of them. If you follow them, you will find them, and they are hilarious. Controversial take. I think Latino comics actually want to make you laugh. They want to get laughs out of you. They want you to spit out your drink. Whereas sometimes other ethnicities want to get like a clap, like a polite golf clap out of you. And it's like they want to be witty. Latino comics want to make you laugh and laugh out loud. Literally LOL. So look for them. They're hilarious. Some of the guys there's some of the shows are free. Just they want you to buy a food item, a drink or so.
And if someone mentions my name, what will they get if they go to your show?
They'll get made fun of. That's
okay.
Gabriel, what's wrong with you?
All right. Ahí te guacho, Nacho.
Órale, pues.
All right.
Thank you.
Pitrucha with your legal lucha. Follow me for more post comments. Adios.